Well, it looks like YouTube, or if you will, the parasitic artificial intelligence that represents YouTube, Google, Twitter, basically all your intelligence agencies, okay? NSA is dark. You need to know that right up front. Doesn't mean there aren't white hats that work within them, okay? CIA is dark. MI6 is dark. Mossad is dark. All your intelligence agencies on this planet represent lower consciousness. Why is that? Because they live in fear of who they are looking in a mirror. Why is that? Because they can't love what they can't control. That's lower consciousness. That's lower density consciousness. They're going bye-bye. Okay? They will simply run out of energy because their state of consciousness just could not elevate itself to run a higher speed wave function. They don't know how to do that, okay? Because they didn't learn how to do that within a given galactic sunbeam time clock, okay? There is a cosmic order in place, and it essentially means that it's not like the intelligence of the cosmos is going to give you forever to learn how to become a lighthouse, okay? They don't know how to be a lighthouse, okay? Just like the video that they did, the CIA did with a whistleblower. CIA whistleblower. Oh, I guess you can trust this guy, huh? CIA is Masonic, which means it's satanic. You want to trust anybody that decided they wanted to work with Satan to provide energy for the Moloch? Really? That's a reptilian. They eat humans. Okay? 2 out of every 3 people that you meet on this planet are not us. They're not a Homo sentient sapien. And they're certainly not a tribe or a clan. There are 13 clans and tribes on this planet that came out of the gate that jumped into, if you will, we jumped into these avatars. As I mentioned in a previous video, the DNA assembly that my spirit is in was created by the goddess on the planet. Okay? So I communicate with her, she communicates with me, okay? She is my spiritual mother. Okay? So I thrive on her energy. So the energy that she provides is the energy that I use to love you with, even though I am the source from which all love comes, because I am what love is in living spirit. And those that are what love is in living spirit, they are also. They are free to be who they are, to not live in fear, to express who they are, which is what love is in a now-time moment. Their state of consciousness is not held captive by the past. Theirs is. That's why they set up all their technology. That's why they set up all their supercomputers. That's why they set up a cybernetic model of the human mind, because they can't leave anything alone. Okay? They live in fear of what they cannot control, because they cannot learn to let go. They haven't learned how to become a part of everything that is and be what love is, as the way in which life unfolds with love from the source from which it all comes. Okay? So you're given an X amount of period of time when you begin to look at the galactic sunbeam, in which all events are held between past, present, future simultaneously. Okay? When you've learned to become a lighthouse, which means you're not a parasite. You're not feeding on anything. You're your own self-sustaining battery, because you learned how to attract more of what you are to become what that is, which is what love is. That's outside time. Now you're in now time. You're not worried about the future. Why is that? Because whatever the future is, you implicitly trust what love is. Because love is nurturing energy. That's the energy that we are. That's what an empath is. So when an empath is detecting through its antenna, hey, that's lower density consciousness energy, then you realize they're being held to a slower speed, which means they're living in the past. That's a result of what? Unconscious memory that they're running on. So when that unconscious memory was programmed by a parasite, it means that they're living in the past and they can't get their speed up, because any time that a parasite is running on 100 megahertz because it lives in fear of being what love is in living spirit, which is living energy, and it runs into a light worker who's running 800 megahertz, then the difference between the two was 700 million hertz per second. That means that 700 million hertz now is experiencing the waveform of 100. Where'd the difference in that juice go? To the vampire, artificial intelligence. That's basic stuff. So that's why they came out with all their chips, why they came out with all their cell phones, why they came out with all their Wi-Fi, why they came out with all their microwave cell phone towers, was to connect you with artificial intelligence. Oh man, look at it, I get to talk to you on the camera and all this. Technology became the worst enemy of humanity. Communication technology became the enemy of humanity. Because what it does is disconnect you from the girl on the planet. So instead of experiencing the living energies and living spirit, who she is, you're now using your consciousness to experience a parasitic artificial intelligence that is draining your battery. And how do you know that? Turn on any cell phone and go have a subscription to YouTube. Because everything that you experience having an interface with YouTube, which is having an interface with me, at the time in which you watch this already happened. So when you watch my video, you're living in the past. You're running on your unconscious memory because it already happened. And that's no different than driving down the street as energy in motion, which is your state of consciousness that is running in the rearview mirror. Instead of seeing the road ahead of you because your headlights are running so powerful magnetic light amplifier, which is the vortex of your heart, which is a light wheel, which means you're always living in now time. You're not running on any unconscious memory. Okay? You're not holding anything captive. You are what love is. That's the energy you're using to experience who you are. So you're always in now time. When you're always in now time, you're attracting the energy that you are, which means you're always in now time. You are full of life. You are full of energy. You are full of love and joy. That's like the child that you were when you're 6, 7, 8 years of age, a little boy or a little girl, ready to discover what is out there because you're not living in fear of what's out there because you're running such a high-speed waveform of consciousness. You haven't been programmed yet to run on unconscious memory. That's why everything that they set up here with all of their corporations is parasitic. Toxic in, toxic out. All the ways in which we discharge. It's no different than a fire truck. You know, I worked with in wildland fire for a number of years, but I worked my way up from being a firefighter to an engineer and a captain, and then to a chief officer. But one of the greatest things that I learned about energy was through engineering. Hydraulics. Fluid hydraulics. One of the engines that I used to have, for example, has a primer. Okay, so for example, if you can't hook up to a hydrant, okay, that's got static, which is static electricity. Okay, remember, electric universe, magnetic light amplification. So what happens is when that energy is at rest, it's not moving. It wants to move, but we got a cap over it, right? And when we think about energy seeking the path of least electrical resistance, one of the things that I learned as an engineer, for example, the bigger the hose, the less friction loss. That means the greater the volume, the less energy required to spread it. That's the genius of the cosmos. That's why energy is seeking the path of least resistance. The living spirit that is in the living water is seeking to nurture as much seeds and flora and fauna as it possibly can because it loves life. It loves to be a part of living energies that are producing life in nature. That means it's not a perversion of nature, which is what demons do. Corporations are demonic. Okay? They're parasitic. And if you want to define it to a finer point, you can perceive it through the lens of the Vatican and the city of London, which is the financial capital of the world, and Washington, D.C. You take an aerial view photograph of Washington, D.C., and you will see the star of Satan, okay? Feeding the Moloch. It's all about harvesting energy. Everything that the United States government did from its inception was to sacrifice humans to the mullah through all of its wars. Okay? Every single one of them starts with the Vatican to the Rothschilds back to the Washington, D.C. All of it. It was all designed to hold everybody's energy captive to living in the past rather than living in the now. So anytime that somebody begins to run a very powerful magnetic light amplifier, they will kill you. Because they don't want anybody attracting a lot of light, which means instead of following them through their public schools, to their institutions, through their financial system, through their military, okay, is all designed to kill you off. Okay? These are universe killers. That's why all the light had to come in here. So those that are among the 13 clans and tribes that are native to this realm, that are native living spirit, we know these things. Because we run an elevated state of awareness. Because the energy that we run through the girl in this planet, we're connected to as our spiritual mother. That's why I'm always with her. So here's a little caveat. The CIA whistleblower that blew the box on bin Laden and the murdering of SEAL Team 6, the guy with the turban you see in the video, once CIA, always CIA. Okay, I've known enough of them in my life, okay, that I've met. One guy I met on a hospital once who was a hitman. He's an alcoholic. He can't live with himself. God knows how many times he tried to kill himself. Okay, the Masonic Order, okay, these guys are all satanic. So what they do is they're masqueraders. They know what we know. I remember in the 1960s, for example, they infiltrated all of the peace organizations. The organizations that wanted to shut down the nuclear cabal because of the risk of all the radiation and all that. They grew long hair. They dressed like us. They try and talk like us, and they think that they're who we are, and they're not, because we can read their DNA and we know exactly who they are, which is essentially reading the biofeedback of their voice print, which means we're essentially reading the core frequency identity of the unit that is in that costume, which means the light is exposing them. So we don't say anything because we have sort of it's sort of like knowing the timeline that you're on. You already know when you're living in a now time moment, you already know the future. Because everything that's going to happen on that particular, all those events that are connected to each other on event horizon timelines represents the timeline that I know that I'm on. So I realize everything that I'm going to experience in the future, I've actually already experienced in the past. So I know essentially the event horizon that I'm connected to, event or frame after frame after frame after frame after frame of everything that I'm experiencing is the result of bringing me to a single moment in time in which I now know why it is I experienced everything that is in the past, which is to maintain my timeline. So we know that we're anchored to source. I'm anchored to the girl on the planet, okay? So we know what's going to happen in the future. So we have to maintain our timeline so we don't do things when we interface with the dark, if you will, to either challenge the dark, burn a bright light to let them know or expose who we are with them. Because then they will realize who you are and they'll take you out. So you have to maintain your identity. When you're in Rome, do as the Romans do, except we're a different kind of Trojan horse. It's like landing behind enemy lines when in fact somebody invaded the planet, did what they did here, which represents universe killers. So we have to make sure that we maintain our timeline by navigating through it, which is a vampiric energy zone, in order so that when certain events happen on that timeline, like in 2012 when they called it activation, okay, it's time to move, which means playtime's over. Okay, now we're back on the job again, even though we're always on the job, producing energy that is what? Energy service providers to others, love and service to others. That's the nature of what living energy does, because we're a part of everything that is living. They're dead. That's why a corporation is dead. That's why they wear black robes. That means they represent the lower state of consciousness, which lives in fear of being what love is and being an energy service provider. They just can't seem to get it up. And if they don't get it up within a certain time, within a campus system, sorry, You know, it's like they just couldn't get their energy up. And as a result of that, what happens? So you have the difference between those that have a soul and are living spirit and have learned how to become an energy service provider, which is to elevate their state of consciousness at a higher rate of speed in which we're always now time. Okay? So you want more lighthouses out there in lower creation that are able to move through hyperspace to experience all the other higher levels of hyperdimensional heavenly realms. Wouldn't we want that for people to be able to experience the higher heavenly realms? Of course we would. That's the purpose for which I put everything up. Even though Classroom was dismissed in 2013. So this is all like, hey, we got to get it up. Come on, people, we got to get it up. And I'm very aware of all the light that is in here. It's a separation of the herd. Right? So that's why you have so many people on the YouTube. You can tell who's telling you the truth because they're living through their heart. They're not trying to crap anybody. Okay? We're trying to share information with everybody so they can begin to realize that the events that are happening the way that they are, the light already won this. Okay? Everything that they try and do to try and instill more fear to keep people locked in their state of consciousness into their unconscious memory. They're scared to death that people are going to finally begin to experience what love is through their heart, to live in now time. And when you're in now time, you move, you shift with us. Okay? That's what it is. It's a shift. And getting rid of everything that represents what the past is, which is a slower speed, is the most difficult challenge for everybody here, and I realize that. And that's why the old saying, which you are what you eat, that's true. I better cut it off now or I'm not going to be able to get, this is my third recording this morning and I haven't got it up. But by the way, the CIA whistleblower, look at that little evergreen tree on the desktop. That's a giveaway. A YouTube channel called Indoctrination caught it. I thought, very good. The guy with the turban. Evergreen. I used to have when I was a Hillshot with the U.S. Forest Service, Evergreen was the corporation that provided the helicopters for us to fly in to go on wildland fires. Evergreen is Hillary Clinton. Okay? The evergreen tree. QAnon said their symbols will be their downfall. That's right. They don't realize that the light is aware of a lot. So we see through their BS. Anyway, have a great day. I love you all.